right. Well, let's begin what's trending with reactions trailing the inhumane treatment of the Super Eagles of Nigeria at the airport in Libya. The players traveled to Libya for the second leg of their 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match following their 1-0 victory in Uyo, and were met with harsh treatment by Libyan officials. The players were held at the Al-Bak airport for over 20 hours upon their arrival. Following public outcry, the players withdrew from the qualifying match and returned to Nigeria. Well, on Monday evening, the Nigerian Football Federation issued a lengthy statement detailing the Super Eagles' ordeal in Libya. And I'll read an excerpt that actually got me. They wrote, "It took over 1 hour for the team's luggage to roll through the carousel, despite the fact that the bags and other items had already been hauled from the aircraft immediately on arrival. No official of the Libyan Football Federation was at the airport to receive the delegation, as it is the best practice globally. Airport officials could not answer the simple question on where the buses that would take the delegation members back to Benghazi, where the NFF had booked hotel rooms, were. When delegation members, including the NFF president, Comrade Shuaibu, and Dr. Sanusi, attempted to venture outside the airport to ascertain if there were vehicles waiting for the team, they were stopped in the most uncouth manner by airport security personnel." I know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has weighed into this matter. CAF also has responded, but the details of how our Super Eagles were treated has, enraged Nigerians. I'm completely upset about the situation. But also the Libyan Football Federation have provided a video evidence of its team, Mediterranean Knights, and what they endured when they visited Nigeria for the third round of their AFCON 2025 qualifying match. As you can see in that video, they were left waiting and they were made to pass through like some, bad roads. But what are we talking about here? Is it tit for tat? This is what it is now, tit for tat. Let me take some reactions from Nigerians. This is from Eri Oluwa. He wrote, "I've always had my doubts about the Libyans, especially regarding how they treat blacks in their country. It's hardly different from how other Arabs treat us. It's despicable and uncalled for. I mean, it's not like these Super Eagles were auditioning for Survivor Airport Edition. This isn't just disrespectful, it's irritating and a massive clog in the will of African unity. AFCON is supposed to be about unity, not about turning teams into pawns in some geopolitical chess game. Let me not talk about CAF. I will skip it. The Nigerian government needs to step up, not just with a stern letter, but with actions that shout, you don't mess with our Super Eagles. This isn't just about football. It's about basic human dignity." Well, Adeze put out a picture and she wrote, "On the left is the bus the Libyans brought to pick up the Super Eagles after over 20 hours of evil and wickedness. On the right is the bus that NFF provided to convey the Libyans when they were in Uyo, and people opened their mouth to say that we did the same thing to them. Absolutely not. Sad." So, we respected them. Look at the bus that came to pick them up when that incident occurred. I believe how many weeks back, like a week ago, right?
A week ago, yes.
Ayo.
All right, so first of all, I'll just echo what you had mentioned earlier, Rufai. This is where Nigerians have to show oneness.
Yes.
I can't believe that some Nigerians are justifying the actions of the Libyan by saying, but we did the same thing. Not at all. There's a place for criticism. There's a place for loyalty and patriotism. We cannot in any way accept. Because for the way they treated the Super Eagles, it's a slap on Nigeria's face. It's not just about our Super Eagles, the national team of Nigeria going out there. Then in explanation for what happened in Uyo last week, I'm glad Abi was here earlier, and she said that what happened was that the Libyan team did not inform the Nigerian officials what time they'd be arriving and their itinerary for their arrival. And so there was no one to welcome them. But immediately they heard they were around, they sent officials to receive them, and they sent very comfortable buses. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about our bad roads. That is part of the Nigerian. It's not, we didn't destroy the road purposely because we knew that Libya was coming so that they would have a bad experience. And then they got to the match. And she already mentioned about how we saw how lackluster they played. They wasted a lot of time. But again, this would have been justified if this is not... If this were the first time that Libya was doing this. We've heard about how when local league players and team members go... Eyimba United, she talked about Remo Stars and a few other teams. So what happened with them? Did they come and was a retaliation? Even the audacity of the Libyan Football Federation writing a letter to say that because we didn't play the match today, or we didn't stay to play the match, we were going to write to CAF and that we should be sanctioned because of our people. The audacity. Yes. I said it before, it's not just about sports now. It's a diplomatic issue. And the Nigerian government, and rightly said by one of the tweets, the way we are mistreated or maltreated in other countries, especially North African countries, needs to be investigated. We need to have, demonstrate a strong showing and solidarity behind our players and behind our people. Nigerians deserve to be treated with dignity, especially on the African continent. Absolutely. We go abroad and we are maltreated. How much more our brothers and sisters on the African continent? I hope CAF, by the way, the statement released by CAF was too watery and it came a bit late. I hope CAF will take a strong stance against this and restore some sanity to the game. Football is a game that unifies and should have been seen as a game to build bridges between amongst countries. It's sad that it's turned out this way, and we salute our men, the Super Eagles who conducted themselves well, ensured that they came back and refused to play that game. We are behind you and we support you. Your country is behind you.
With the recent ongoing trending news about the Super Eagles of Nigeria, the NFF's Director of Communications, Dr. Ademola Olajire, has provided a point-by-point account of how a keenly anticipated Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match was relegated to a fiasco by Libyan federal authorities and Football Federation, and he stated that the chartered value airjet aircraft departed from the Victor Atta International Airport in Rio at 11:55 hours on Sunday, the 13th October 2024, and landed at the Aminu Kanu International Airport, Kanu, at 13:10 hours for the completion of immigration formalities and for the aircraft to refuel. The aircraft took off from Kanu at 15:18 hours for a 3 hours and 35 minutes flight to Benghazi, Libya, expecting to arrive a few minutes before 8 p.m. Libya time. Just as he was about to commence his initial approach into Benghazi, the capital, the pilot was instructed by the control tower that he could not land in Benghazi, despite having all the required landing papers and having completed all formalities before leaving Uyo and later Kanu, but should proceed to the Al Abrag International Airport, even though the airport lacked the control navigators for landing at such hours. He explained that he was short on fuel, but his words fell on deaf ears, as he was told in stern manner that the directives was from higher authorities. On landing at Al Bragg International Airport in the small town of Labrag at 19:50 hours, it was clear that the airport was not a well-utilized facility. There were no scanning machines or the usual equipment for this service. Officials had to make do with mobile phones to scan passport data pages. The delegation, which included 22 players and team officials, NFF President Al Ibrahim Musa Buzwa, Deputy Governor of Edo State, Comrade Philip Shaibu, a couple of NFF board members, NFF General Secretary Dr. Mohammed Sanusi, and a couple of parliamentarians, a couple of NFF management, a couple of media representatives, and a couple of stakeholders, was shown scant respect by the airport authorities, who applied curt manners and stern tones. It took over 1 hour for the team's luggage to roll through the carousel, despite the fact that the bags and other items had already been hauled from the aircraft immediately on arrival. No official of the Libyan Football Federation was at the airport to receive the delegation, as is the best practice globally. Airport officials could not answer the simple question on where the buses that would take the delegation members back to Benghazi, where the NFF had booked hotel rooms, were. When delegations members, including the NFF President, Comrade Shaibu, and Dr. Sanusi attempted to venture outside the airport to ascertain if there were vehicles waiting for them, they were stopped in the most uncouth manners by airport security personnel. Calls to the General Secretary of LFF, Mr. Abdul Nasser by Dr. Sanusi yielded no fruit, as the former kept promising that the buses would arrive in 10 minutes, which later became 2 hours and afterwards 3 hours. Later in the evening, it was no longer possible to reach him on phone. Frustrated by this attitude, Dr. Sanusi approached the security operatives to request that the team be allowed to go out and board the buses the NFF eventually hired. This request was rejected with insults. It took the intervention of NFF dignitaries to prevent what would have escalated into a row, as the NFF president himself was not spared when he heard exchange of voices between the security personnel and his general secretary. This aggravated the tension and further frustrated the team. And with mounting frustration, delegation members, particularly the players, grew restless. There was no food or water provided by the LFF, or where to even procure these items, and there was no network or internet connection at the airport. This swiftly increased the level of frustration and anger. At past midnight, it was learned that there had been word from the higher authorities that the Nigerian delegation should be delayed for a minimum of 10 hours at the airport for what they falsely claimed was done to their team in Nigeria. All conversations between the NFF General Secretary and the LFF General Secretary on the march in Uyo, both written and voice notes, are still in the NFF General Secretary's phone. The NFF team was shocked because the incident referred to in Nigeria was entirely generated by the Libyans. They informed the NFF that their contingent would be landing in Port Harcourt and not in Uyo, only 2 hours to the team's arrival in Nigeria. Despite this, the NFF moved swiftly to get authorities to grant their aircraft movement permit from Port Harcourt to Uyo. But this gestation, as the NFF apparently did not cherish the additional fee dispatched by the charter company. They opted to travel by road, refused to use the buses hired by the NFF, and instead hired their own, and disrespected advice not to travel by night. When they stuck to their guns to move by night, the NFF provided security. The NFF even provided the team training facility the day after the match and secured direct flight permit from Uyo to Benghazi for the delegation. Infuriated, the NFF president reacted. We anticipated some shocks here, given the false account of what happened in Nigeria as narrated by their team captain, but we did not expect these shenanigans. What I am seeing is despicable and has no place in the game of football, which is meant to foster excellent relationships among the nations and bring people from diverse cultures, religion, persuasion, and economic political interests together in an ambience of peace and joy. The NFF learned that the embassy of Nigeria in Tripoli had written a fortnight earlier to the authorities in Benghazi that they would want to welcome the Nigerian delegation on arrival. This application was said to have been rejected outright. In a conscious effort to play down their frustration, anger, and hunger, players and officials resorted to playing games, listening to music, chatting themselves up, scanning through the airport exit door to see if any vehicles had arrived, and generally look forward to daybreak, which they hoped would bring much sought out relief. Many calls were made to higher authorities in Nigeria to appraise them of the situation, and these persons all expressed fears for the safety and security of the team. These fears were real and justified given the plethora of threats thrown by Libyans on legacy and social media in the days before and after the match in Uyo. At 2 a.m., Captain William Ekong met the NFF president in the company of the NFF General Secretary to inform the president that the team may not be able to go ahead with the match due to trauma, fatigue, and body aches that resulted from lack of food, dehydration, and very cruel and unimaginable treatment, which had led to some players falling ill. The NFF repeatedly calls to officials of the Confederation of African Football, the Nigeria's FIFA Council member Mr. Amaju Melvin Panic, and higher authorities in Nigeria it dispatched a letter to CAF in which it detailed the antics of the host and hopes that the continental governing body would go ahead to punish the rare bestiality visited on the beautiful game. It noted that the Super Eagles had traveled hoping to enjoy a great game of football, but had sorely disappointed and frustrated by the unprecedented level of hostility and poor attitude of the host. At daybreak, Mr. Maurice Oromosele, president of the Nigerian community in eastern Libya, arrived with words of empathy from the ambassador of Nigeria to Libya, His Excellency Alhaji Mohammed. He expressed shock at the treatment meted out to the Nigerian delegation, who were made to spend the entire night inside the departure lounge of Al-Brag Airport. He said His Excellency ordered him to get a few things for the team, and he later returned with plastic bags loaded with croissants and drinks. He served as breakfast for the team. More calls were made, and eventually it was agreed by all parties that the team should not go ahead with the match, but return to Nigeria to await the decision of CF, who were briefed in detail on the situation with regard to the unplayed match. After spending many hours waiting for Al-Abrag Airport authorities to sell fuel to refill the chartered value jet aircraft, which was initially proven to be sort of robotic engineering, the Nigerian delegation departed the Al-Abrag Airport, not worth the toga of international by any scale, at exactly 15:05 hours, bound for the city of Kanu and onward to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
Good to see you. Well, this is going to the bank. That's fixture of 225.
Is the extent of us and such
on the continent.
Passengers will be treated as
Now we'll talk to you.
Hello, how are you?
Just tell us your experience.
Opportunity on behalf of the team and the entire delegation to appreciate the government and people of Nigeria for the sign of solidarity they showed to us.
The fact of a flight in a day that we paid the point of landing to having to make what took place, but the bottom line is that let me thank all of you for the great show of maturity. In spite of what took place, in spite of the provocation, we've seen all the pictures, the kind of manner that you were treated, and how you had to try to see whether you could even find some rest in the airport, how you were stopped from leaving the airport. And in spite of all of that, you remain calm, remain mature. You have the spirit that is typical.
Yeah, Kochi, we want to find out how did it go in Libya, your experience?
Well, obviously it was not a good experience. And not at this time you expect a country to behave like that. We all know how football can unify the entire world. It's entertainment, you know. But for the Libyans to put off such act, it was very surprising for me. Up till now, I still cannot comprehend. It's been like since yesterday morning we left the shores of this country. We arrived, I think, at about 7:30, 7:45 p.m. And up till now, we've not closed our eyes, you know. But again, thank the Libyans for letting us go. And I want to use this medium also to thank the Honorable Minister of Sports, Senator John Emo, and of course, the government who intervened at the appropriate time. You know, it's been, the boys have remained calm, no doubt about that. Thank God we arrived back home safely. My pleasure.
And what is the resolution?
Well, it was a very terrible experience, something that we never expect at this 21st century. It was a very unfortunate situation. We found ourselves in a very terrible situation. As you are all aware, we left Nigeria from Uyo to Kanu with the intention of landing in Benghazi, because that was the approval that was given to the chartered aircrafts. But unfortunately, some minutes for us to land, the captain informed us that he was directed not to land in Benghazi by the higher authority. So he's taking us back to a place they call Al-Alabat for us to land. It was a very terrible experience. The pilot has to manage himself to see how he can land with us in a situation, in an airport that was not fully ready to receive us. But that's not even the story. We spent 12 hours or close to 18 hours locked in a conference hall without water, neither water, no food, no internet, no network, no communication whatsoever with anybody. And the highest disturbing thing was for us to communicate to our embassy people to tell us that they were not even given permission to come to Benghazi, talk less of coming to our own side. So we are left hopeless. We don't even know where to go. We cannot move out. When we intend to go out to even try and source things for ourselves, we are being blocked, and the airport was locked, that we cannot go to anywhere. We are just left with the military officers, and it was a very unfortunate situation. But we thank God that we are back home, and we take it from there.
So what's the way forward?
Now the way forward is that we have already lodged our complaint to CAF, and every little bit of information about the incident has been communicated to CAF. Then we wait and see and hear the result of the disciplinary committee of CAF on the decision they are going to take. But I just want to assure you that this is a very terrible experience that we cannot ever expect any human being to go through it. Thank you very much.